for us to prepare for repatriation. And St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Vincent, and you should be familiar with this, because I'm going to give you a story that came from our history and the exile of the Garifuna people. This is a true story. This is not a make-up story. This is a true story. The Most High know what he was doing, right? In about 2011 or 2012, I bought myself an RV, and I say I'm going to see the United States. I have already seen New York. I'm going to see the United States. So I buy myself an RV, which is a house on wheels, and I start driving from New York, and I touch a lot of states on my journey. When I reached to North Carolina, I had an accident, and I stayed there to start repairing my van. So I said, let me stay here a while and repair my van before I start going, because I had my RV and I had my van. So now, while I was there, one of the ways I supported myself while I was on the road on my expedition, I brought a lot of stuff from New York City: handbags, purses, watches, earrings, rings, a lot of costume and authentic jewelry. So what I will do, I will go to the flea markets and I will offer these fancy New York City products and for sale in these flea markets. And once these people hear that these are stuff from New York City, they will buy them up. So that is how I maintained myself while I was on the road. So let us get to the story that I want to talk to you about. At that flea market that was held in Sunday in Durham, North Carolina, there was a market that had a lot of stalls in it, and there's a lot of people in those stalls that sell food and clothing and crafts and so forth, novelty items. So when there wasn't a flea market, this market was open for business. So one time I was at the flea market a Sunday, and I have already packed up and it was time for me to leave. But I said, you know what, let me go and examine what is happening in the market. I went in there and I saw a very attractive young lady. So I sneaked into her shop. I started talking to her. She told me she was from, I think, was Guatemala. So I said, oh, so you're from Guatemala? I said, nice. So I started asking her about Guatemala. She told me a lot about Guatemala. I said, so you can be considered an African Guatemalan. And when I told her that, she became pretty offended. She didn't want to be called an African Guatemalan. She said, I'm not an African Guatemalan. I am Garifuna. I am Garifuna. She became very upset because I referred to her as an African Guatemalan. So I said, you're Garifuna? I said, so am I. I'm Garifuna too. I am from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And when I declared that I was from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, she became all elated, all happy. Oh, you are from Urume. You are from Urume. You are from my father's land. You are from my father's land. She became, listen to me. This lady treated me like a king. Let me go back one before I go into a store. I recognize an attractive lady, but she was not happy. She didn't look happy, right? She didn't look happy. She looked sad, like if she didn't want to be there. But I will tell you why. When she realized that I was from Urume, I was from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, she became all elated and all happy. Why? Because ever since the Garifuna were banished by the British, the banished Garifuna, always look forward to returning to the land of their father's birth, Urome. And they taught their children that they were not Guatemalans. They were not from any of the other countries that they migrated to. But they were from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And one day, they will go back to St. Vincent. They will go back to Urome. People, I'm trying to tell you why it is important that we start teaching our children. We start teaching our children to look forward to that day when they will go back to Israel and occupy Israel. When they will go back to Israel and occupy Israel. We have to start teaching them today. People, as I tell you before, this lady became all elated, all happy. She treated me like a king because I was from her father's land. I was from the land that she looked forward to even as a little child, that her mother and father looked forward to going, that her grandmother looked forward to returning to. I was from that land, and she treated me like a king. She became happy. She wanted to know all about St. Vincent, not just from reading about it, but from someone who have lived there, someone who grew up there, someone who was a part of the culture there. Why? Because even though she was existing in America, even though she lived in America, even though she had a business in America that was affording her a good living, her heart longed for Urome because her grandmother and grandfather and great-grandfather and her parents, and now she was always told, this is not your home. Your home is Urome, and one day we will go back to Urome. That is why she treated me with such dignity.